Most people have no idea how long Padre Pio spent in the confessional each day. Not 1 hour, not 2. On many days, he sat in that small wooden booth for up to 16 hours straight, listening, praying, discerning. Penitents traveled from across Italy, from other countries, sometimes waiting days just for a few minutes with him. And here is what makes that number so striking. Padre Pio was not simply hearing words. Those who witnessed it said he seemed to perceive something beneath the words, something invisible to ordinary eyes. He would sometimes name sins the person had not yet confessed. He would ask questions that cut straight to the heart. People left that confessional shaken, not because he was harsh, but because they felt, for the first time in years, that they had been truly seen. Now think about what happens when one man hears that many confessions, across that many decades. Patterns begin to emerge, not random sins, not isolated struggles, patterns, recurring wounds, the same confessions, told in different voices, in different accents from different walks of life, but carrying the same interior damage. And among all the sins Padre Pio witnessed, there were 3 connected to purity that kept returning, 3 that he began to speak about with growing urgency to his spiritual children, 3 that the modern world has largely stopped calling sins at all. The third one was the one that troubled him most deeply, not because it is the most dramatic, but because it is the most invisible and the most misunderstood. Before we go further, I want to invite you to do something simple. Write in the comments right now, Padre Pio, pray for my heart. It takes less than 5 seconds, but many people who watch these videos say that small act becomes something more than a comment. It becomes the beginning of a conversation with God they had been quietly avoiding for a long time. Stay with me. Because the first of these sins begins somewhere most people never think to look. There is a detail about Padre Pio's life that many people overlook when they think about him. They remember the stigmata, they remember the miracles, they remember the long lines of pilgrims stretching outside the church of Santa Maria delle Grazie in San Giovanni Rotondo. But what fewer people speak about is what those years in the confessional actually did to him. Biographers and those who knew him personally noted that Padre Pio often emerged from long sessions of confessions visibly exhausted, not merely physically, but in a way that went deeper than tiredness. He carried what he heard. He prayed over the souls he encountered. He continued interceding for them long after they had gone. He once said to one of his spiritual directors, "I see souls the way a doctor sees bodies." And what he saw again and again was a particular kind of sickness, one that did not announce itself loudly, one that crept in quietly, settled comfortably, and then slowly dimmed the interior life of a person until prayer felt hollow and peace felt unreachable. He began to identify 3 sins in particular that were doing this to souls. 3 sins tied to purity, to the body, and to the sacred nature of human love. And as the decades passed and the world around him shifted, his concern about these 3 did not decrease. It grew. He watched the culture change. He watched what had once been considered private shame become public entertainment. He watched souls arrive at his confessional carrying wounds they could not name, looking for relief from an emptiness they could not explain. And he knew exactly where that emptiness was coming from. What you are about to hear is not meant to condemn anyone. Padre Pio himself was known above all for his mercy. His confessional was not a courtroom. It was, as many described it, more like a hospital, a place where broken people came and left with something restored. So let these words reach you the way he would have wanted them to, with honesty, yes, but above all with compassion. The first sin is the one that almost no one recognizes as a sin at all, because it never asks for permission. It never announces its arrival. It slips in through the ordinary rhythms of daily life, a glance that lingers a moment too long, an image that gets stored in the back of the mind, a thought that returns uninvited and, little by little, begins to feel like a guest rather than an intruder. Padre Pio spoke about this with great clarity. He taught that impure thoughts, when entertained willingly and repeatedly, are not a harmless private matter, they are seeds. And like any seed, what determines their power is not how small they begin, but what kind of soil they fall into and how long they are allowed to grow. Think about a field in early spring. At first glance, it looks untouched, clean, but beneath the surface roots are already forming. By the time something is visible above ground, the root system has been working for weeks. Nobody sees the damage until the damage is already deep. That is exactly how this sin operates in the soul. A young woman once came to Padre Pio's confessional and told him she felt spiritually dry. Her prayers felt mechanical. She went to Mass. She said the rosary. She did everything she was supposed to do. But something was missing. A warmth she used to feel was gone, and she could not explain where it had gone or when exactly it had left. Padre Pio listened, and then he asked her a quiet question about what she allowed herself to think about before falling asleep at night. She went silent. She had not connected those two things, the thoughts she had considered harmless and the spiritual coldness she had been experiencing for months. But Padre Pio had seen it countless times. The interior life is not separate from the interior landscape. When certain images are regularly permitted to settle in the mind, they begin to crowd out the quieter, more delicate movements of grace. And grace, unlike noise, does not compete for space. It simply withdraws. He told her something she never forgot. He said, "The soul needs silence to hear God. When the mind is full of noise, even the noise no one else can hear, God's voice becomes harder to find." This does not mean that every passing temptation is a sin. Padre Pio was clear about that. He understood human weakness. He knew that temptation arrives without an invitation and that its mere presence does not make someone guilty. The question he always asked was a different one. What do you do when it arrives? Do you send it away or do you offer it a seat? That distinction, he taught, is everything. His practical counsel was direct. When an impure thought appears, do not engage with it. Do not try to reason your way past it or analyze it into submission. Simply redirect. Pick up your rosary, make the sign of the cross, stand up, and change the room you are in. The physical act of moving, he said, is often enough to break the interior fixation, because the mind follows the body more than we realize. When the body moves with intention, the soul often follows. Small gestures, but repeated faithfully, they form a habit, and habits over time become the architecture of a soul. The second sin cuts deeper, because it does not just touch the individual, it reaches into the heart of a family and leaves marks that can last for generations. Padre Pio saw infidelity as one of the gravest wounds a human being could inflict, not only on a spouse but on themselves. And what troubled him most was not the act itself, as serious as it was. What troubled him was the road that led there, the small surrenders, the tolerated distances, the conversations that should have happened and didn't, the prayers that should have been prayed together and weren't. He often said that infidelity rarely arrives like a sudden storm. It arrives like drought, slowly, imperceptibly, until one day the ground is cracked and dry and a single spark is enough. He held a deep theology of marriage. For Padre Pio, the union between a husband and wife was not a social contract. It was a covenant, something forged before God and sustained by God. When that covenant is broken, something tears not just between two people, but within the soul of the one who breaks it. There is an interior wound that no outside relationship can heal, because the wound was made in a place that only God can reach. There is a testimony that has been passed down among those who studied his life as a confessor. A man came to him, a respectable man, by all external appearances, who had been involved in an affair for several months. He came to confess it, but he came, as many people do, with a kind of partial confession. He minimized, he contextualized. He explained the difficulties in his marriage, the loneliness, the way his wife no longer seemed to understand him. Padre Pio heard everything. And when the man finished, the saint did not respond the way the man expected. He did not lecture. He did not raise his voice. He simply asked one question, quietly. "And your children? Do they still look at you the same way?" The man broke down completely. He had not thought about his children once during those months. He had been so consumed by his own interior narrative, the story he had told himself to justify what he was doing, that he had stopped seeing clearly. Padre Pio's question cut through every layer of rationalization in a single sentence. That was his gift. And it was also his method. He did not argue people into repentance. He asked the question that only an honest heart could answer. He believed that the antidote to infidelity was not primarily willpower, it was spiritual intimacy between the couple and God. He told married couples repeatedly, pray together, even when you are tired, even when it feels like going through the motions, even if it is only one Hail Mary before you close your eyes at night. Because something happens, he said, when two people kneel before God together. The walls that pride and routine and resentment build between them begin slowly to come down. And what enters the space those walls leave behind is something the world cannot manufacture or replicate, a quiet, enduring tenderness that protects a marriage in ways that nothing else can. If you are married and watching this, that might be the most practical thing you take from this video. Not a program, not a technique, just two people kneeling together before the same God. And now we arrive at the third sin, the one Padre Pio considered the most spiritually dangerous of all. Pause here for a moment, because this one requires care. It is not the most dramatic sin on this list. It does not involve another person in the way that infidelity does. It is in many ways the most private sin imaginable. And that is precisely why Padre Pio found it so alarming, because its privacy makes it feel inconsequential. Because the modern world has not only normalized it, but has in many cases wrapped it in the language of health and self-expression and personal freedom. He was speaking about the deliberate, habitual use of one's own body for pleasure, in isolation, outside the sacred context of love. Padre Pio understood that speaking about this required great sensitivity. He was not a man who reduced human beings to their worst moments. He did not stand at the entrance of the confessional with a list of accusations, but he also could not remain silent about something he had seen devastate the interior lives of so many souls, particularly young people who often arrived at his confessional deeply confused, carrying a shame they had nowhere to put and a longing they could not name. He would often say something that surprised people who expected a stern rebuke. He would say, "The body is not the enemy." He said it because he understood that many people who struggled with this sin did so precisely because they had never been taught a coherent, beautiful vision of what the body is for. They had been formed by a culture that treated the body as a machine for sensation, something to be used, optimized, consumed. And so they used it, without malice, without rebellion, simply because no one had ever shown them another way. But Padre Pio held a different vision entirely. Rooted in his deep prayer and his sacramental life, he saw the human body as something astonishing, a vessel made for love, for communion, for the expression of something that transcends the physical. In Christian teaching, the body is not a cage for the soul. It is part of the soul's expression. What we do with the body echoes inward in ways that science alone cannot fully account for. And when the body is used habitually for isolated pleasure, when it becomes over time simply an instrument of self-gratification, something inside the person begins to fragment. The capacity for genuine intimacy weakens. The interior life grows quieter. A subtle restlessness sets in that no amount of satisfaction can resolve, because the root of the restlessness is not physical. It is spiritual. And spiritual hunger cannot be fed by physical means. Padre Pio saw this pattern so often that he developed a particular tenderness for those who came to confess it, especially when they came with genuine sorrow. He knew they were not wicked people. They were wounded people. People who had learned to seek comfort in a way that ultimately deepened their loneliness, each time leaving them a little further from the peace they were actually searching for. He would tell them, "Purity is not the absence of desire. It is desire that has found its right order." That sentence carries more weight than it might seem at first, because it means that the goal is not the elimination of something human. It is the restoration of something beautiful, the capacity to love in a way that is whole, ordered, and genuinely free. Freedom, Padre Pio believed, was not the ability to do anything. It was the ability to do what is truly good. And that kind of freedom, he said, is exactly what purity opens the door to. Which brings us to the question that matters most. Is there a way back? Padre Pio would not hesitate for a single moment before answering, yes. Always yes. For anyone. From anywhere. No matter how many times the same ground has been covered. He was a confessor, not a judge. The entire architecture of his ministry was built on a single conviction, that God's mercy is not a last resort. It is a first response. It is not what God offers when all else fails. It is the very first thing he reaches for when a soul turns toward him, even slightly, even imperfectly. The mercy of God, Padre Pio said, is greater than any sin that has ever been committed. He meant every word of it, and he had the confessional record of a lifetime to back it up. But mercy, he also taught, is not the same as indifference. Receiving mercy means something. It means turning around. It means choosing differently, not perfectly, not all at once, but with sincerity and with persistence. The person who falls and gets up is not the same as the person who never fell. They carry something the other does not, a knowledge of their own fragility and a deeper gratitude for grace. He pointed his penitents toward 3 concrete paths of restoration, and he returned to them again and again throughout his life, not as rules but as doors that anyone could walk through regardless of how long they had been standing outside. The first was confession, not as a ritual to be endured, but as an encounter to be sought with a real sense of expectation. He believed that something genuinely shifts in the spiritual realm when a person confesses sincerely. Not metaphorically, actually. He had seen it too many times to doubt it. People walked into his confessional carrying weights they had carried for years, weights so familiar they had stopped noticing them, and they walked out lighter. Not because of anything he said or did, but because of what the sacrament itself accomplishes in the soul when approached with an open heart. Something that had been closed begins, quietly, to open. The second path was the rosary. He called it, famously and without apology, a weapon, not a decoration, not a devotional nicety for people with nothing else to do. A weapon. Because he had seen what it does to the interior life of a person who prays it faithfully and consistently. It quiets the noise that the modern world never stops generating. It reorders the attention. It draws the heart, almost without the person noticing, towards something greater than itself. And over time, it changes what a person desires, not by force but by sustained proximity to something beautiful. The third path was the practice of small, deliberate, daily decisions. Guarding what enters through the eyes, being intentional about what the mind consumes through screens, conversations, and environments. Choosing each day, even in minor moments, to act in accordance with who you want to become rather than who the habit has made you. Not in a spirit of fear or self-punishment, but in a spirit of quiet stewardship, recognizing that the soul is formed day by day by what it repeatedly receives, and that we have far more influence over that than we tend to admit. None of these 3 paths is dramatic. None of them comes with a guarantee of instant relief. Padre Pio was never interested in dramatic promises, and he was suspicious of anyone who offered them. What he offered instead was something steadier, and, in the long run, far more valuable. A direction, a practice, a companionship with God that grows stronger precisely because it is tested and not abandoned. If something in these words has settled somewhere inside you, if a particular moment caused something to stir, even quietly, I want you to take that seriously. Not with anxiety, not with a heavy sense of obligation, but with the simple, honest recognition that the fact you are still here, still listening, still willing to let these words reach you, says something real about where your heart is pointing. Padre Pio spent his entire priestly life among broken people. He never turned one away. He never made a person feel that their particular struggle was too entrenched, too old, too shameful to be brought into the light. He believed, with the full weight of his faith and his experience, that every soul which genuinely desires to return to God is already, in that very desire, closer to God than it realizes. Write in the comments, Padre Pio, walk with me. Let that be your honest gesture today, not a performance for anyone watching, just a quiet acknowledgement between you and God that you want something more for your interior life than what you have been settling for. And if this message reached you in a way that felt real, consider passing it on. Not to preach, not to correct anyone, simply because sometimes the most loving thing we can do for someone is to quietly place something true in front of them and trust them with it. This community was built for exactly that, to carry these teachings week after week to people who are genuinely searching. If you are not yet part of it, subscribe and stay close. Leave a like if these words were worth your time. It costs nothing, and it helps this message find the people who need it most. Becoming a member of this channel is also a way of saying that this work matters to you, and that kind of support makes it possible to keep going. Padre Pio had a way of ending his conversations with spiritual children that those who experienced it never quite forgot. He did not close with warnings. He did not close with conditions. He closed with the same quiet certainty, regardless of what had just been confessed or discussed. He would say, "Do not be afraid, God is not finished with you." He said it to people who had fallen badly. He said it to people who had fallen the same way too many times to count. He said it to people who were not even sure they believed it anymore. And it was true then. It is true now. Whatever brought you to this video today, whatever you were carrying when you pressed play, that sentence belongs to you as much as it belonged to anyone who ever sat across from him in that small wooden confessional in San Giovanni Rotondo. God is not finished with you.